You're listening to part 1 of a Barefoot Lawyer Reports on China interview with Peiming Cheng, a man who claims to have survived a forced organ harvesting surgery by the Chinese Communist Party. The interview was conducted by Dr. William Saunders, director of the Center for Human Rights at the Catholic University of America, and translated by Dr. Sen Nieh, fellow at the Center for Human Rights.
Hi, I'm William Saunders, the director of the Center for Human Rights at the Catholic University of America. Welcome to another edition of the Barefoot Lawyer Podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking with Peiming Cheng, who I will call Mr. C, as other people do, because my Chinese is not so good. So I'll call him Mr. C, who is a survivor of forced organ transplant by the CCP. There have been stories of forced organ harvesting for many years and many claims, but so far as I know, this is the first person who says he has survived forced organ harvesting. Now, also joining us on this podcast will be Sen Nieh, who is an emeritus professor from Catholic University and a fellow of our Center for Human Rights. And he will be translating what Mr. C has to say to us on these podcasts. So for framing this a little bit, Mr. C has come to Washington, D.C. over the last few months to present his story, and he's done it in 3 events, one on July the 3rd, one on August the 9th, and one on September the 4th. These events have been sponsored by the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting by the CCP organization. The organization called Stop Forced Organ Harvesting by the CCP. And Dr. Nieh is co-founder and director of that organization. So with that in mind, let's turn to discussion of this incredibly horrifying human rights issue. And I just, again, as we go into this, anybody listening, imagine that against your will, some organ in your body is being taken out to benefit some rich person who can pay for it, or some Communist Party member who has the power to get it. And think about what it means to live in a society where there's that kind of lawlessness, where you don't even have protection for your bodily integrity, which is a basic human right. So let's just start off. Sen, I just want to ask you, when would you say this forced organ harvesting began, and as far as we know, and who is subjected to such things?
Yes, thank you, Bill, to have us on your program. I have been doing with a group of my fellow friends of rescuing victimized persons from China, particularly Falun Gong practitioner, in the past 2 decades. Okay, and Mr. C is the recent one. Before that, there's famous Charles Lee, who victimized for 3 years, and I have rescued Miss Yin Li Ping. She is gang raped by the prison guard in China. So a number of people. The recent one is Mr. C, Chen Peiming, who is the survivor of forced organ harvesting. Then we have a website. We have done different cases, so we can provide.
We'll share that for sure. We'll share that for sure.
Yeah, so it's it started with about 9 years ago, when a friend of mine presented the picture of Mr. C to me, with a long scar on his chest, and with a picture of he's shackled to the bed of a hospital, and I immediately, with his stories too, so I immediately think this can be the survivor of forced organ harvesting that interested me. So I help others, to our leaders, particularly Congress, foreign affairs committees, those senior congressmen, they are very interested in his case, want to hear about his first experience in China. So they wrote a letter of support, and he escaped to Thailand, which is UN refugee camp in Bangkok. And the letter sent to our ambassador in Bangkok and UN refugee camp, the higher representative, asked them to resettle Mr. C, who is a refugee, there to the US. The sooner the better. So I got 5-6 letter of that sent to that, but it seems doesn't work between for 3 years, 2015 to 2018. It seems doesn't work, although it's hopeful, but it doesn't work until my fellow friends, Professor Bob Destro, who is assumed the Assistant Secretary of DRL, Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor of the State Departments. And I had a chance to present the case to him. And he looked into the case and asked his assistants to investigate this. He thinks he's a very valuable persons and victims. So he actually facilitated behind the scene to make that happen. So after 5 years, he stayed in Bangkok. We have successfully brought him over to the States in July 2020, like 4 years ago. Yeah. Then he believed he's the victims of the forced organ harvestings, and we brought him to the hospital, the clinic, to do the test. There are 9 different kind of imaging tests, like ultrasound, X-ray, MRI, all these different tests of his chest, of his abdomen. Then we, with those images, about 4,000 such images, black and white, and later on we use software to convert that into 3-dimensional colored images that easy to see. And we ask the medical expert in our countries, in other countries, in Taiwan, and they confirmed, we wrote a report on that, they confirmed that his left liver was surgically removed, cut off, and the part of his lower loop of the lung was surgically removed. So he lost 2 parts of the organs. In 2004, he was forced to the hospital. Then we had the case, and we present that in 3 press conference. The first one is more toward Chinese language media. Second one is to mainstream media. That the third one is rebuttal to CCP's reactions. So it turned out that become the big news, the breaking news. So far, there are about 64 English language media reports and citation about him, including the diplomats, the Americans, spectators, and in US, in UK, in Australia, in other countries. And there's about more than 100 Chinese language news reports on his case. So he is pretty much known by the medical professions assessments and by the media and the public as the first known survivor of forced organ harvesting. That's become very unique. So that's about the basic backgrounds.
Yeah, thank you, Sen. So let's let the listeners hear from Mr. C himself. I'm just going to ask the general question of if he would tell us his story, starting with why he was a victim and what he remembers of what actually that he can remember that happened to him.
My name is Peiming Chen. I was born in 1965, August 29th. My hometown is in Heilongjiang Province, GC City, which is northeast part of China, very cold, close to the boundary with Russia. So I was a coal miner and doing various things. And I started to practice Falun Gong in March 1998 as a steadfast practitioner. The teaching of Falun Gong in March 1998, that completely changed my life. I was hopeless, and this gave me the hope I can see the meaningful life in my future. And I also benefit that from physical health and particularly spiritual growth. Unfortunately, in July 1999, the Chinese Communist Party launched a crackdown on this peaceful group of Falun Gong. Then I feel that I benefit from that. I want to tell the government that we are innocent, good people. So I went to protest. And I was arrested several times, total 5 times, from 1999 to 2002.
The Catholic University of America's Center for Human Rights has published a documentary on the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights. The documentary features world-class human rights experts, from former State Department officials to ambassadors and human rights activists. It can be found on our website at humanrights.catholic.edu.